Hey, Ajiri.
Hello. I love it.
Okay, so there are so many great interviews about you that I have heard, and they're all great. And I wanted to kind of take us down a path of just getting to really know you on a more deeper level.
Okay.
If you give us permission to.
All right, let's see.
So we're just gonna begin with some questions about you.
Okay.
And then I wanted to kind of take it over to your business and Madame de la Maison.
Okay.
And for you to give us some insight as a businesswoman, how you have like created this and just maybe some of the struggles along the way and like whatever you feel comfortable sharing. So the first thing is, where are you born and where are you raised?
So I was born in Nigeria.
Okay, I did not know that.
Oh, really?
No. So I'm born in India.
Okay,
in New Delhi. Not a people
that
don't.
I knew.
Yeah, but okay. So how old were you when you moved?
So I was born in Nigeria. My parents were doing a lot of back and forth. They're both Nigerian. My mom is Nigerian and Jamaican, and they were doing a lot of back and forth between their like PhDs and masters and all their different degrees. So my older brother was born in America, and then my mom, she was like, "Oh, I'm going to go back to be Nigeria with her family."
Yeah.
So she went back, and then she gave birth to me.
Okay.
And then we stayed there, came back to Ohio for a while, and then went back to just a lot of back and forth. So by the time I turned 6, my parents, 5 or 6, my dad was already living in America in Texas, and then my mom didn't want to come, but I think a lot of immigrant families do that kind of back and forth. So we then joined my father in Texas, in Austin, and that's where I grew up. Then we stayed.
Wow,
and
okay.
I have not been back since.
I was just gonna ask you, because the common question that I get asked is like, did you go back to New Delhi? And I was like, I go all the time. We still have our house there.
Yeah.
Who was high school Ajiri? And then what did you end up majoring in at college? And did you have any regrets about it?
So in high school, I was very much an athlete. Really into athletics. Like I played basketball, I was a high jumper, and high jump in track, and I ran the 200 meters. High jump is something that if I could do it today, I still would. I wish that it was the kind of sport that you could actually do, but you can't. It's like a sport you do for competition. You either do it in university, the Olympics, and that's it. But it's something that shaped me in so many ways because I also was class president, junior class president. Like I tried, president of all kinds of clubs. I was really kind of like involved. But for me, track was like my sports was such a big thing because there was like the girls that I was always with. We trained together, we did the meets together. But for me, with high jump, something happened in high school where I had a tumor. It was really big, and it was on my leg, around my knee, and which was the leg that I used for my jump. It was like my takeoff leg. And so I had this surgery first when I was 13. The tumor grew back when I was 16, and I did not want it to be removed, but my parents were like, the doctor was like, we have to take this off.
Yeah.
It was pretty big.
Were you scared?
I was scared and I was angry because it was going to mess up my season. So we planned it so that the surgery would be, I think at the beginning of the school year, so I had to quit basketball. So it was like the end of my basketball career. But it would give me time to potentially train and be ready for February meets. So I would go out there, even though first I had to like learn to walk again with this thing, with his little knobs. And then I finally would still go out to be with my team at 6:30 in the morning, even though I couldn't train, but I just wanted to be there. And then when I could start training, I would walk while they were doing all their exercises. I would just walk the track. Then I would shuffle the track. Then I started like jogging, and so I slowly was able to compete in February. It was not the best season, but I went out there and I just cried and jumped every single day because I was in pain.
I didn't
know really
this
hard
about you, because that means that very early on you were already facing kind of like an emotional, physical, and mental challenge that was maybe going to set you up with some lessons that at that age you can't understand. I think.
I don't think I understood it other than the deep passion I had for high jump and the relationship I had with my coach. Like she was really like my mom, my everything. I wanted to please her. I wanted to make her proud. She believed in me. Like the relationship of athletes and coaches, which is probably why to this day I love movies that are all about like sports.
Same.
Love sports movies.
I watched Senna. Have you seen Senna yet?
No, not yet.
Oh, it's so good. I watched the Ronaldo one, which is
I love sports documentaries and movies.
Yeah.
Because there's something like that an athlete goes through that's very physical, it's very emotional. And by the time I got to so that was my junior year, and my senior year, I was fully healed and recovered, but I knew this was my last season, and it was a season that I could really do much better because it wasn't hot off the heels of the surgery.
Right.
But then I had a mental block, and my coach would be out there and she'd be like, AJ, what are you doing? You can do this. Come on, girl, you know what you're doing. And I'd be like, I know it. Oh. And then I would run, and right before I was going to jump, I'd psych out, and I'd have to keep, instead of jumping, I'd go through. And then they give you a couple chances before you strike.
Yeah.
So there was a couple times my coach would be like, I can't do this. I've done everything I can. Now it's you. And she would walk away from me.
Yeah, but that's good.
And I'd be out there like crying, and in the end, I ended up winning district and going on to place second at state, and then holding a record at my high school. And I had a plaque for a while until I was dethroned. But
so you're like a natural born athlete.
I mean, I think
to a certain extent, like in high school, that was something that really was something in high school. There are things that we start doing that already highlight parts of our personality and attitude on who we are.
I was all about working towards something, and I knew because with track, my parents never came to a meet, so I wasn't trying to make my parents proud. I knew I was trying to make my coach and myself proud. And I probably kind of how I am now anyways, that I know at the end of the day, I can't give up. And that's I was out there crying and jumping. It was a lot of pain. Okay. I mean, that tumor ended up reappearing anyways, and I had to have surgery again when I was 26.
Yeah.
But
that's who you were in high school. That was what you remember when someone says that was your. My brother was he's an incredible tennis player. So we grew up around tennis. So we moved from India, and then my brother picked up this sport, and my mom and myself, my dad would be at work. We'd go to all the tennis matches, and he'd win, and he became one of the MVPs on the USTA, got his full scholarship. So we ended up growing up a lot around sports. Yeah. And then grew up with Kobe. Yeah. Which for me, I know it sounds, maybe it doesn't sound silly. I genuinely go to him and his interviews for so much inspiration because his life for me was such a landscape of self-dedication to one goal. And I feel the same. Ajiri, I love sports documentaries.
Yeah, me too.
I just watched The Last Dance, and I was like,
I know, I need to watch that.
I was like, Michael Jordan, this is a beyond dedication, because people idolize it, and then you're like, wait, these athletes it's a full mental, physical, emotional
it's physical,
dedication.
you have to get out there. I mean, I was a high schooler, and I was out there at 6 a.m., 6:30 a.m., 2 hours before school started.
Definitely.
And I definitely miss that so much. I kind of wish that I would have done tennis and track, because then I would have known, because then tennis is something that I can do now. I like tennis now, but I'm just now learning, and I have a coach. Before I was writing the book, I was going and doing that every Friday. When I was in the south of France, I did it twice a week with my coach. Yeah. And even my friend Ziva, our friend Ziva, will be like, do you want to play? And I'm like, usually I'm not available, but I like to play with the coach for some reason. Yeah. I don't know. There's something about a relationship a coach has with an athlete. Even my basketball coach, they all just meant so much to me, and they still mean so much to me. Yeah. And just, I don't know. I mean,
so we would have been friends in high school.
Yes.
I was on the softball team, volleyball team, basketball team.
I was friends with all the athletes, and I'm still friends with those girls. I mean, when
something happens, right, at that age,
because you're all together,
towards a common goal. Yes. And when you win, there's this euphoric feeling. Okay, moving on. What did you study in college, and do you have any regrets about it? I only ask because I have regrets about what I studied and majored in.
I've never been asked that question. So I went to TCU, Texas Christian University in Fort Worth, and I studied, my major was fashion promotion, and my minor was advertising, and I hung around the French department a lot as well. So it's a hard question to answer, because I do regret studying fashion promotion. I felt like a lot of the girls in my department were just trying to get their MRS degree and they weren't that serious. But also, I feel like there's a lot about fashion, in my opinion, that you learn when you're actually like interning and working that those classes cannot teach you. And also, I feel like to really understand fashion, you have to study a lot of other things because fashion is about references. So like, yes, there's like technical classes that you could take.
Right.
But a lot of it is about reference. However, I would not be sitting here today if it was not for the head of the department, who was my advisor, and my fairy godmother.
Oh.
Dr. Fortenberry, like, I literally feel like my mom sent her, I wouldn't be sitting here without her.
Why?
When I started university as a freshman, I have a funny relationship with my father. We didn't really communicate that well, and I just kind of thought he was going to pay for college. I had paid for everything up until then, and then all of a sudden there was a bill, and he was like, "I'm not paying for university. You were paying for it." And I was like, I'm at a private school in Texas. I was like, where am I going to get this money from? It was like thousands of dollars. And I was like living on campus, like driving home on the weekends to work at a burger joint. And, you know, and I went to my Dr. Fortenberry, my advisor, and I just said, listen, I have to drop out of school. It was like a few months into school. I was like, I have to drop out because I can't afford to pay for this. I don't even know where to begin. And she was like, what are you talking about? You're not dropping out. I was like, I have to. I can't pay for this, and I don't have a scholarship. And she was like, there's many ways. And she sat down with me. She wrote down all the ways. She was like, we're going to the financial department tomorrow, and we're gonna look at all the ways. We're gonna ask them, is this possible? Is this possible? Is this possible? And she did. The next morning we went there, and she was like, can she do this loan? They're like, no. What about this? They're like, it's a parent loan. I was like, my parents aren't gonna sign anything. And then we kept going. And none of them added. A lot of them were either I had to do the loan myself or my parents had to sign. And so she goes, well, I'll sign her loan then. Can I sign her loan? And she was like, can you give her a scholarship? They're like, it's too late. She was like, well, can I sign a loan for her? This girl is not dropping out of school. And she signed a loan for me. She signed a loan for me, and I stayed in school. And then she helped me. She'd be like, why didn't you apply to be an RA? Because that will pay for your housing. So the next year I applied to be an RA. That paid for my housing.
She was like guiding you in everything that you think could have been an obstacle.
When I did my internship, and I was like, I want to do an internship in New York, but I don't know how I'll go there. She was like, my husband works for Delta Airlines. He can give you a plane ticket. She kept me in school every time I was like, it's too hard. She was like, you can do this.
Yeah.
Study abroad. She was like, oh, I'll sign a second loan.
Oh my God.
And then when I graduated school, she secretly paid off all those loans. One day I was like, doing the payments, and they're like, oh, there's no more payments. I was like, that's not possible. I'm going to be paying for the rest of my life. They're like, somebody paid them off. I was like, who? They're like, we don't know. I was like, no, you need to tell me. This is not normal. This is a mistake. And they're like, oh, no, it looks like there's a check from Sally Fortenberry. And I'm like, she just paid off all my loans.
Oh my God, Ajiri. You telling this story, I feel like is so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that, really, because I had no clue, because, we don't need to go very deep into this, but we've talked about how we've lost both of our mothers. And so having someone show up in your life, it's not like you're looking for a replacement, but a sense of a guardian and someone taking care of you in a bigger sense. There is something that is unspeakable about that in your spirit, where you're like, there's so much gratitude that I imagine now as an adult woman that you have for her. Do you still stay in touch with her?
Yes, I do. She came to my wedding. I just saw her 2 months ago when I went to Texas. So she's still my benefactor. Like when my book came out, she was like, well, you have to come to TCU and you speak to the students. And I was like, I'd love to. She's like, well, I'm going to make sure they give you, a speaker fee, and and then she has a luncheon with the whole department to come meet Aj, and she'll send me cards. Her daughter is now married with 2 kids. I remember her daughter like being a little kid and in the department. But Dr. Fortenberry, she loves me and I love her. And when I asked her, I was like, why would you do this? Why would you, you don't know me? She goes, Ajiri, they were cheating you. Those interest rates, they're not right. And she goes, and all I care is that you graduated, you got your education. And she's like, just promise me that you'll help someone else another day to get their education.
I was just gonna say, one of the reasons that I also started this podcast is it's okay if I don't have a huge following, but I know there's sometimes people that listen to just one little story and feel very affected enough to go out and do something. And I feel like you represent that a lot. So moving on to my next
Yes.
question, is time. My podcast is called Life on Time.
Okay.
Because a lot of things in my life started to happen on time.
Yeah.
And a lot of things didn't happen on time. I don't have kids, I'm not married, and in like Punjabi culture, I think in many cultures, not just Indian Punjabi culture, there is a limit for you. They
Yeah.
say like, if you need to be married at this time, or you, whatever it is, it's okay. I am not there. I have no regret or anything with that. But I do notice that a lot of things in life happen on time, if you want them to or not. And I was curious to know, do you worry about time? And is there anything that you do to make sure that your time is being used wisely? Or if you're like, gosh, Ajiri, you're not using your time wisely, you should be, but you're not able to do it.
Right.
Is time a question for you? Or
So I have a very funny relationship with time. I think that definitely when I was 30, I was thinking like, oh my God, I really want to get married and have kids. And then I feel like I manifested Thomas to appear, and you know.
can you help me manifest?
Thomas appeared a month after that. And, but, you know, my thoughts on time are funny because my mom died when she was 39. I'm 43. And I'm very aware that, like, time is not something that we're promised. So I'm affected in time in the sense that I really try to live very present. And when I see myself getting anxious about things like, you know, I mean, I'm 43. I just set up a retirement plan for myself 2 years ago. Like, you know, like I was like, okay, this is time for me to set this up. But,
Yeah.
you know, I think about time in the sense of like, I only pray and hope that I get to be a grandmother to my children's children, that I get to go to their weddings. That's my relationship with time. That's why I'm like one of those people when they're like, oh, how old are you? I'm like, I'm 43. I'm 43. I'm 43.
Yeah.
I'm not like ashamed
I'm
of telling
40.
you
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
my
And
age because I'm like for me, every day that I'm here on this earth to spend with my friends and my kids is like a gift.
Yeah.
And definitely feeling like, yes, there's many things that I want to do with my life. I can have moments where I do get anxious, but then, you know, I'm quickly reminded that there's so many people like Tina Turner,
Yeah.
a Tina Turner that we know, like none of that happened for her until she was in her 50s. And I'm 43. Like if
Yeah.
I become like a freaking billionaire in my 50s
Yes.
and like,
Yeah.
I've got time.
Yeah, it's so nice to hear you talk about your age. We were recently at an event, and someone that I met there was really afraid to like talk about their age. Okay,
Yes.
moving on to the next question.
All right.
Is Joy.
Okay.
Was there ever a moment, I know that you just got done writing this incredible book about joy, but was there ever a moment in your life where joy was like really absent and you had to kind of fight to find it? Because in France, and what your book really speaks to, it's easy. Because it is like, as in your words, the North Star for the people in France. But was there ever a moment for you where you were like, I really actually don't have joy in my life and I don't know how to get it? Because it's happened to me.
Yes, absolutely. And while I say it's easy in France and it's North Star, it doesn't mean it's easy for everyone. I just think that the culture is built in such a way that even if you're going through a hard time, you can find it. So just to clarify that. But there have been many times in my life that joy has been hard to come by because I don't think I understood that I could be unhappy and still access joy. So I have struggled with depression off and on ever since I was young and didn't know what depression meant. I probably started feeling depressed when my mom died. You know, it's like situational, like 12 years old. And I had a hard time all through high school, college. Definitely moments of change are where I'm triggered with my depression. It's been off and on. But I didn't really know that I could still be sad and access joy. Like even when I first moved here and it was hard, I didn't know that instead of sitting around being like, woe is me, I have no friends, what to do with my life, I could have been like, woe is me, I have no friends, but I'm gonna go sit on the Seine and take in the beautiful city.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to go get inspired at this museum. I didn't know that those were things that I could do that would spark wonder and joy and like delight.
It's like a slight pivot in just your space or going outside.
Even if it lasts for an hour. Even if it
Yeah.
lasts for an hour, I could have done that, but I didn't really know how, and I just stayed under my dark cloud for weeks and months, and you know, however long that happened. I didn't understand that, you know, learning to tap into joy, it's like an art, something that you can learn to do. So, you know, this is like, I've been depressed while I was pregnant with both children. I don't do really good as a pregnant woman. Even postpartum was a rough time for me. Moving here was a rough time for me. You know, well, also, you know, I married Thomas and then moved here all in the same month. So that was like big moments of change for me. Even starting a business. It's so weird. You think I'd be so excited to be starting a business, but ending a project and starting a new project are always triggers for me of like a big change. And I just kind of go into like a space.
Absolutely. And a lot of those things in general are like big life events.
Yeah.
Like I'll get anxiety around those type of things where I'm like, oh, something is starting, I don't know how to tackle it, and it'll induce some sort of anxiety for me. But thank you so much for sharing that and being so honest about being pregnant and having to deal with that depression. Because two things. When my friend got your book in California, she fell in love with it. She just saw a copy. I was telling you, I don't know if it was Home Depot, another home goods, a different home, not Home Depot, home goods store. And I think when someone gets this book, they can tend to think like, wow, life is so great and it's so beautiful, even though you go into details about everything you've gone through. But I do think it's important to understand, because you have gone through moments that have been unsatisfactory or not joyful. And I do think that's important to highlight as well, because that really allows you to also tap in when there are joyful moments, knowing the temporary nature of life.
Of course.
And knowing like, I know this has to be something important. Even if today, we were talking about how today we have a lot of to-do lists, things on our to-do list. It's a chaotic day. But I'm almost certain that at the end of the day, when we go to sleep, there'll be a little moment of like, that was so cool, or this little thing was good.
Yes.
And your book helped me really to understand that too, because you need that reminder in a way, you know.
Absolutely. Like step away from the work, like take a little pause for yourself and go like have a lunch or go have a tea, or you know, call a friend, or you know, sometimes I'll just be like, I have so much going on my to-do list, like, and even a day like today, I can tell you like, I might just be like, you know what, I need like 10 minutes to look at like a pretty book. Or a magazine. And I'll just sit down and be like, you know.
Watch something mindless. When do you think that you have grown the most in your life, but what specifically caused that growth for you?
When I have grown the most in my life, this is a great question. I think moving abroad and becoming a mom with Numi, my first child, is when I've absolutely grown the most. I had so many stumbles of like trying to figure out who I was, what I was going to do, who I was going to be, the emotional ups and downs. And also just, I mean, it definitely informs the book, right? Where I started to like slowly as a mom, as a person living far away from my friends and my family, kind of really discovering who I am. Or who I was to be, or, you know, who I was at that time, just like changing. And I'm so happy with where I've landed. And also understanding that it's okay that I can still evolve more, like though, you know, it's always changing. But I just feel like so confident and kind of like, you know, saying like, yeah, I don't want to do that.
You feel the growth, huh?
No, I just like, I don't want to do that.
Because you act differently in certain situations that maybe in the prior would have provoked us in a different way. And now that's when I noticed my growth, where something that would have bothered me maybe even 2 years ago, now I'm like, absolutely okay. I know how to handle it better. And that's when I'm like, oh, this is growth. This has changed. I usually would have been so sad about this event, or maybe questioned this event, but I don't question it as much.
No, I don't. And I feel kind of like, I don't question a lot of things. I don't feel like I need a lot of things.
Okay, we're gonna go into a little bit of your business section.
Okay.
You literally turned something that you love doing, hosting and gathering, into a business.
Yeah.
That is an art. It really is because it is not easy.
Yeah.
I think from an outside perspective, people see this life and they're like, this is so wonderful. You live in Paris.
Yeah.
You have this beautiful home. You have this beautiful book. You're surrounded by friends. When doors are closed and when you're really by yourself, it is a different story. Not completely different from what we see, but there's a struggle that not everybody gets to see.
Yeah.
And so my question is, looking back, is there anything you would have done differently when you were starting your business now in the way that you physically started it? Like, I don't know if you started with Shopify. I don't know if you started a website.
Yeah.
But now in this process, if there's like a young boy and a young girl watching this, was there be any piece of advice that you would give on how you made that transition over to really turning what you like into a business?
I honestly don't think there's anything I would have done differently. Because, I always tell people start before you're ready, because that's how you learn. You make a lot of mistakes and you fine tune and you pivot.
Start before you're ready.
Yes,
that is it
absolutely.
right there.
Start before you're ready. You have to do a lot of research.
Yeah.
You have to start before you're ready. You have to be willing to pivot when things aren't working. There was a part of my business, I was doing rentals, and after doing it for 3-4 years, I decided that part of my business is not working. It's not serving me anymore.
Yeah.
And I had to close that door. It was like sad for like a week, and then I was like, I don't even have time to be sad because I'm doing so many other things. And I had to be like, it's not that I failed, it's just that I don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah.
And you have to be willing to kind of roll with what's happening. But also, like, people contact me a lot. They're like, oh, I love entertaining, I love doing this, and I want to do what you're doing. I love antiques. And I think that anybody can do whatever it is they want to do, but you have to research first.
Yeah.
So, like, for me, I did a lot of research. I looked to see what other brands are out there. I looked to see what they were doing that I liked, what they were they doing that I didn't like, what fits me.
Yeah.
And even when most brands will put on a Shopify the product just on white background, I've done something that's a little different, which is everything is a lifestyle photo.
Yeah.
And it's not on a white background, which at first I was like, ooh, am I making a mistake? Because every e-commerce site is on a white. But it works for me. My clients prefer it. They like to just see it in situ, what it looks like.
Okay, what about the name? The name is so well done, Ajiri. It is, the minute that I was like, Madame de la Maison, it provokes something like of power and security, in the sense of like, there's a securedness about that name. I don't even know if that's the right word, but what I mean is like the Madame, there's an authority. The authority is what I mean.
Well, I love that.
Because I think a good host, you gotta have a little bit of authority over your party, your jam.
Yeah.
You can't, I'm
gonna throw this phone out the window. Oh my God. I have no idea why I put it on Do Not Disturb and it just keeps going.
We're not gonna be too long either. Because I do want people to go back and like learn more about you.
I'm sure they're like, what is this woman can't even sit down? Her phone
we'll edit a lot of that out.
Well, the thing is, it's funny because when I tell the name to French people, they're like, oh, like, they kind of like think it's funny that anyone would want to call their company Madame de la Maison.
It's genius to me. I think it's so good.
But I think what's fun about it is two things. Is one, I took it from like an emotional, literal translation, as most English speakers would. I'm thinking of like Madam of the House, like I am Madam of the House. I'm thinking like Les Mis, Master of the House. Like I'm just thinking this, the authority that an English language person feels when they hear the translation in their head, like Madam of the House.
Yes.
I was thinking when when I was a kid, my aunt would always be like, oh, Madame Ajiri, because I was all about pomp and circumstance. And I think it's kind of funny that she's like, oh, Madame. Yes, Madame. And she still says that to me if I like come around town in Austin. She's like, Madame is here. And this is, I don't think she knows my business name, but I think this is what they always called me. So I found that fascinating. And they called it to me, and it was not, like they weren't trying to be nice when she was saying it, it was usually kind of like, oh, Ajiri's being, extra.
Yeah.
But then also when I moved here, and you had to like fill out a form, every French form asks you your occupation, like your career. What you do.
Yeah.
I mean, even my kids' school, like, what do you guys care? But you have to write what job you have, even just for and it's just the form that says like your phone number, your address, and like And I would always have to put femme foyer, which is like housewife. I guess it translates to housewife, but I didn't like the way, like in my head in early French, is like the woman of the foyer. Like, I'm not just of the foyer.
Of course.
You know,
of
like
course.
I don't like the way it sounds. I didn't like the. And you know, I know femme foyer is like, you know. And I was like, you know, madam of the house. Like, I'm running things. Like, I'm here.
God.
I'm like, I wanted to take this sort of like, I wanted it to be powerful, to be like, you know, doing things that seem like homemaker-ish.
Yes.
Like hosting and cooking and buying things. Like, why does it have to be like a pejorative, like little lady thing?
Yeah. The thing is, with good brands, I like to get curious about them. I don't want to know every single thing.
Yeah.
And so when I saw you visually and then I saw the name, everything was so intriguing for me that I was like, I think I manifested you. I was like, what I mean is living next to you. Because I was always so curious. I was like, who is this Madame de la Maison? I would see your, you know, just common friends in general. And I was like, I would love to get to know her one day when the time permits and it's authentic and it's real and honest. And now getting to know this side of it makes so much sense on where the evolution came. Yeah. Okay. I read that you did your master's. Yes. You were a grad student, and this was your second trip in France.
Yes.
And oh my gosh, you taught me something, and then I became obsessed. You were doing your thesis on Jean Patou, who was the rival of Coco Chanel.
Yes.
I have never I've never heard his name, nothing at all. And I'm so curious to know, because we work in an environment where there's competition. Yeah. Competition is a good thing, it's healthy. We've talked about sports. My question to you is, after writing that thesis, I wondered, and I don't know if you had the same question, how come he didn't succeed as much as Chanel did? I know that he had like a perfume that was the top second seller and won awards, but why don't we hear about him? Why did he not have that thing that Chanel had? And I imagine that this is, you know, when you're running your own business, it's an interesting idea on like, well, why did this one brand succeed and why did he not?
Well, at the time, everybody knew both of them. Everybody knew Jean Patou. Everyone knew Coco Chanel. I mean, in Downton Abbey, when that sister gets married, she wears Jean Patou. You know, like, historians know. But Patou died, and his successor at the house, I think the house closed for a while, and then he had successors. They just weren't as vibrant as he was. You know, he was pretty much a dandy. And, you know, and Chanel she had a personality that was bigger than life, and she was like, she knew how to do the marketing, and you know, after he died, that was not there. And so she was very pervasive in telling her story, making sure that people knew that she did this and that, and she was Chanel. And you know, her house also closed for a while. And then you have Karl Lagerfeld, who revived that house in a major way. And I think that what's unfortunate about the brand Jean Patou, which has been revived recently with Guillaume Henry, like, I feel like there needs to be, like, people just need to know who he is. And then you would find it interesting, whether it's maybe you have to tell it through the story of their rivalry.
Yes.
That would be very fun and interesting for people, like, you know, the things that they would do, stealing each other's, like, employees.
Well, I think if you're in fashion or not in fashion, it was fascinating for me that you ended up doing because you were doing your master's in decorative arts, decorative studies. And I just, being someone who obviously doesn't come from the decorative arts or fashion studies, I was like, oh my God, I'm so curious to know what she thought while she's reading about this guy, Jean Patou, and why he didn't end up doing better.
And I was very obsessed with it at the time, with wanting people to know who he is, and like, I was obsessed with the fact that people didn't know who he was, that he wasn't popular enough. You know, I wanted that, and I quieted that part of me, and then I recently met the president of Jean Patou at a dinner, the brand, the company, and it just has revived my, like, obsession and like wanting to, like,
he's not alive, right? Is he?
No.
Yeah, I had read, because
he died of a heart attack. Like,
that was a silly question. Yes, this was early. In the 2030s.
He died in the 40s. Yes. Very, very. So, And then there was an auction recently by his family. They auctioned up a bunch of stuff. And I went to the auction, like walking around just like crying because I was like, I couldn't afford anything. And I was like, this is all going to go to different parts of the world.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's still, you know, even there's still this part of me that just like still is obsessed with Jean Patou.
Yeah. Well, you got me. You sparked the curiosity in me.
Yeah.
Because then suddenly I love brands.
Yeah.
I love good brands.
Yeah.
And I'm always curious on why certain brands have stuck around and not. Now this leads me to my second question about this business. Many questions. I don't even know what question I'm on. Is, do you think that social media now in this current age plays a really big role on brands development and also longevity, because we're not living in a landscape where every single year there might be a new landscape. Do you feel that you struggle with it at all? Because we have Instagram, we had Facebook, we have YouTube, we now have TikTok. Do you ever feel as a business owner, I've got to like keep up, I need to figure this out? Or is there a sense of confidence of like, it's okay, it's the right community will find me?
No, I think that there is a pressure, a feeling that I do have to stay up on the social sites, social media, because, and you know, of course the book has given me a lot of visibility. You know, my neighbor just said he saw me on NBC. I didn't even know he's looking at CNBC, but it's definitely given me a lot of visibility. And social media does too, because I mean, it's unfortunate that they control how they show what they show. But I mean, I've been able to get a lot of like newsletter subscribers so that I can then share what I want to share. But I think as a small brand that you know, I don't have like this big financial backing. I'm very aware that I do have to play the social media game. Yeah. And you know, and I can look at it as a positive thing in the sense that like, you know, social media has sort of like made it possible for a smaller brand to share what they want to share. You know, when before people had to like have a lot of money to take out paid advertisements in big magazines, and you know, we don't have money for that. I don't have money for like a big ad in like a home magazine. There's so many great home magazines that contact me all the time because they think that I'm a big brand and they're like, oh great, do you want to take out an ad? I'm like, I don't have $40,000 to take out a one-page ad in a magazine. Right. You know, so I think that while social media, there's many negative parts about it when it comes to like being competitive, you know, watching what other people are doing.
I wanted to have an honest conversation about that simply because I think we all do it. Yeah. And I don't think it comes from the nature of like, I can't believe she's doing that. I think it's a natural thing when deep inside, knowing you knew what you explained from high school, there's a healthy competition that happens and that takes place when you want to be good at your craft. Yes. You want to be good.
And I think that there is healthy competition. And I think that, you know, what I'll see is like, okay, I need to know what's in the market, what's happening in my market, what are other brands doing, just so like you keep tabs. But I have actively muted or unfollowed any other small brand that I found my intentions of watching them were not
serving you,
not serving me. Like if I'm looking, I'm just like, ugh.
Yeah.
And I would be like, oh, she's doing that. Why can't I do that? Why? Well, she must have like financial backing. I don't. Yeah. And like that, immediately I was like, mute.
And it's not a healthy thought for us because you know what I think with that? Yeah. I'm like, Preeti, wait, hold on. This thought, it could have been something so much more productive towards your business. Yes. I think we've talked about this before, but you only have a certain amount of willpower in the day. Yeah. At the end of the day, I don't know at what time for you, but for me, it starts to wither away around like 7. Yes. And anything important after that, I can't give to it. Yeah. So I have to be mindful in my day if I'm mindlessly scrolling, which I think we all do. Yeah. But when I'm doing it too much, it's a good indicator of where my life's at. If I'm scrolling a little too much, I'm like, wait a minute, something wrong? Yeah. Because this is too easy to do. It's too accessible. Yeah. And my business and your business, it requires a different kind of love and attention. And if I don't give it that, I know the other side of what that outcome can be. Absolutely. But again, being a business owner, you have to get, when TikTok comes out and people are like, you need to be on it, now you're like, well, how do I make the time for this? And how do I schedule in another thing in my day? So it can be a cause for friction.
Yes. It's not easy. Like, you know, we've talked about this TikTok thing a lot. I've obviously have to go on TikTok for my brand. I was very kind of like hesitant to do it, but now I'm kind of like, okay, let me just take a different attitude. Post one time a week, like just chill, just start there. Or, you know, I have someone who's kind of helping me a little bit with some of my social media.
Yeah.
I feel like I have talked to like other friends who are like, ugh, I'm not playing that game. Or I was talking to someone yesterday who was like, ugh, I don't do the social media thing. I'm like, you have a book to promote. You better do the social media thing. You know, like I want to sell books. I want to be able to continue to reach more people. I want to be able to do more creative things.
Absolutely. But Ajiri, also social media is in a lot of ways your newspaper. It depends on what you follow.
Yeah.
You don't have to follow accounts that don't correlate or correspond to you. You can follow, let's say you like BBC, you can follow.
Yes.
It's your modern day newspaper, so now it's up to you to be responsible on what you choose to feed yourself. So
and how much time you spend looking at it.
How much time you spend looking at it, which I think I know I've had to have I don't really have a conversation with myself, but there are moments where I'm like, why are you doing this?
Yeah.
Why are you waking up and
Me too.
suddenly needing to do this?
Yeah.
And it's been a while. We've talked about it where having made that shift, I was like, oh my God, this made me space for me. I love reading.
Yeah.
And I don't make time for it. And I was like, I've got to start making these great books.
I know.
I'm reading Viola Davis's book. I still haven't gotten so good.
Yeah.
And I don't want to move over to audio so quickly because so much is digital that I like the aspect of sitting down with my book, having it open. And
except for her audio is so good because you get to hear her voice.
I know.
It's so powerful.
Everybody has said that. Okay. We only have a few more questions, but you've been giving us so many insights. Okay. What is something that happened in your business that you were not expecting and that you're like, this is so cool that this happened? I can name a few. You were on Oprah. Oprah Daily.
Yeah, that was very cool.
It's so cool. Wow. What an achievement.
Absolutely. Things that have been so cool. I mean,
or something you weren't expecting that happened because
I think I wasn't expecting to get licensing deals. I think that I never, even when I set out making my business plan, I set out wanting to do this. I never thought that somebody would say that I'm a tastemaker. I've been called a tastemaker a few times, and then you offered money as a tastemaker to like design something for somebody.
Yeah.
That for me, I was like, am I a tastemaker? I don't know. I'm just styling the things that I like to style. So getting a licensing deal where someone's like, we want you to design this collection, a capsule collection with us, that I just never even knew was something I wanted. And now that I'm doing 2 right now, I'm like, oh, I want to do more of this. This is really fun, and I really like doing it. So that has been like an opener and kind of like a new career path that I didn't know that I would be,
but that's how it happens,
down.
right?
Yeah.
Like you evolve, you start from something little, and then you evolve, and then it starts to like chisel away at what you really want to do. Like you're getting into the place where things are good now.
Yes.
Where you're like, this is where I actually want to invest my energy, as opposed to maybe doing, like rentals, where it is it's a much more complex system of getting. But now you're understanding like this is great.
Absolutely. I mean, just like, I also, another cool thing that I did was I did a job for LVMH, which, I thought early on that I would want to do that kind of stuff. And now I'm like, I only want to do it if it's like a bigger scale, because it was really fun. LVMH was like carte blanche. They give me an empty apartment, fill it up, make sure that there's great food and a fun experience for our executives. That was really cool. And that happened early on. So I thought I would want to do more of it. And I do want to do more, but not like on a regular basis. I like a big scale project, and let's do like a couple a year. Yeah. Only taking the ones that I want to take. But getting to design, that is, design more is like really definitely something like, I didn't even know I want this, but now I want it.
Right. Are you a night owl or an early bird, and has it affected your business?
I'm a very rare group of people that are both.
How do you survive?
I don't know.
So you go to bed super late?
So it's very seasonal. So in the summer months, I love being up early in the morning when no one else is up, especially right now when the sun comes up at like 6:30.
Yeah.
I love tiptoeing out, especially like last year when we were in the south of France. I love to get out and I'd go to the pool house where I knew nobody could hear me. I'd take the tea, because if I was in the house, if the kids hear me, they're up too. I'd go out to the pool house, and here I like sneak out here, and I love to be up in the morning because most of your friends aren't texting you. Like my phone's been going off the whole time. No one's texting me. It feels like the weird excitement of opening a fresh notebook.
Yeah.
I'm like a person who has like way too many random notebooks.
Yeah.
I just like a fresh notebook, and that's what it feels like when I'm up in the morning and no one else is around.
It's sacred a little bit, right?
Yeah,
it's a sacred
it feels very
feeling.
sacred, and I love it. But admit that it only happens for me in the spring and the summer and early fall. When it's winter, I'm not getting out of that bed early.
Yeah.
But at night, I also like to be up because the children are asleep. I think a lot of like moms also probably have this, like, you know, the kids are finally asleep.
Yeah.
So I can be up, tooling around, watching a show, moving, like doing whatever it is I want to do, and nobody's bothering me. In the evening, there might be like more people that might be texting me.
Yeah.
But so that's why, like, I just like both. And I do both.
You mentioned to me a while ago that you're like, I think I'm going to maybe start to take Fridays off. And I was like, oh,
yes.
Why? And you were like, because I need it.
Yeah.
I need it for me now. Have you been able to honor that?
I have. I've done it three weeks in a row. And even this Friday, I'll do it again.
What does it mean? What does that look like physically? Is it no phone? Is it or not answering certain?
It's, I'm not really checking my email. I'm not checking my email at all, actually, on that day. I usually get up, like, to go to a museum that I wanted to go check out. I definitely take some magazines. I'll go sit at a cafe. I met a friend for lunch. I met a friend for lunch last Friday in the Place Dauphine that I've never even been to.
Yeah, see, it's exactly.
I just never had time. And we were going to go to the conciergerie together, but we ended up meeting for lunch. Because I was like, girl, I'm not trying to be rushed around today. So we had lunch, and then we were like, this place is so beautiful. I'd never been there. And then we just sat there forever just talking.
Yeah.
And we never made it to the museum. But for me, it was like my soul needed that, where I wasn't like, oh, I got to run. Lunch is over. I got to get back to I was like, we'll get back when we have to go pick up our kids.
Yes.
And we just sat around talking and catching up. Another friend biked over and met us. And we just sat in the place, and it just felt like this beautiful moment that felt inspiring to me. I want to be inspired again. I mean, I'm always inspired, but like give more space to that.
Yeah.
Also because I think when you have kids, small kids, it's like the weekend that's supposed to be the weekend is actually just full of shuffling them to birthday parties, and they need, you know, my kids don't have school on Wednesday, Saturday, and Sunday. So on Wednesday, Saturday, and Sunday, I have to like figure out what to do with them and to occupy them.
Yeah.
So that leaves me Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday that are spent working. So what of those 7 days do I get? And I'm really all about me time. I'm all about like me.
Well, you're the one that did the solo trip that inspired me to do a solo trip, because
I need that.
I need it for like just to stay creative.
Yes,
and also
you can't be
to
creative.
separate.
You can't be creative. Your mind is constantly like, you know, I also, like, there was a time period where I was like, in the mornings, no phones. And I would get up in the morning and I would be like, I have a million wonderful books. And I'm like, I'd get up and like, let's pick one. Let's reread some text. Let's look at the images. Like, and I did that for like a couple months. And I was like, from that came some other ideas. Like, I just, you know, doing this Fridays, I think is going to like birth, like just last Friday also then was able to like, kind of come up with ideas for like potential another book, you know, like just because I had the clear headspace of not being like, oh, I have to do this, I have Zoom, and you know.
Yeah, definitely.
So I love it.
Yeah, it's a beautiful, what you just explained, I think a lot of people start to feel that way, where now it's like, okay, let me at least give a sense of like my time in general. I've recently just been on this idea where I feel a lot of things come and go, especially like parents come and go, friendships come and go, objects come and go. And the reason I've been investing so much time on myself, I think it really started in the last 2 years. We've known the most important relationship you're going to have is with yourself. And ever since losing my mom, I recognize to what extent, how temporary, and every day we hear it. Something happened, someone went away, someone, and at the end of the day, I've realized like it is so important that I am someone that I really like, and I do things I like, and I do it for other people, or I'm creating a space that wherever I go, there is a sense of light, not just for me, but in every little moment. Like anything around me is going to be beautiful. It doesn't need to be Paris, but it's going to be that way. Which I want to end with, I'm really sincerely telling you, I love your book.
Thank you.
It is so beautiful, and it's just really, I'm still halfway. I haven't made it all the way through, but when I got it, I was like, oh my, I sent you a message. It is really, really good, and I really am happy that it's finding the right people.
Thank you.
Because it's more than just a book about living in Paris and gathering, and it's so beautiful that you've so openly shared so much of your struggle, which I think adds a lot of authenticity and credibility to who you are as a person.
Thank you.
So I hope there's so many more things I could talk to you about, but she's a very busy person. But thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for having me.
It felt like I was just.
Yes.
It felt like the camera's not even there, and I could sit here.
Yeah,
so
we just sit here and chat.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Thanks.